Good evening and happy Thursday. Just on my way home here, and as the kids like to say, I wanted to hop on and talk. What we gonna talk about? Well, today is a very bizarre and quirky. The day itself is not bizarre and quirky, but this is a strange anniversary. And I want you to think amongst yourselves something that was immensely, massively important at a certain point in your life that you may have believed was always going to be immensely, massively important. And when you look back now, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, or in the case of somebody as old as me, how about almost a big 3 decades ago? Well, once upon a very long time ago, the host and creator of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous podcast was the most feared blackjack player in Atlantic City, briefly, but I was. And in that crazy stretch, when I was the most feared blackjack player in Atlantic City, and the casino managers and the pit bosses and floor bosses, they were running for the hills. I thought that blackjack was always going to be a big part of my life. I've got to say I'm happy that I was wrong about that, because there is a lot more to life than sitting in casinos at 2 a.m. trying to remember what the fuck is the true count. I think I might be off by a couple of digits here. But on this day, 2012, February 19th, 2012, did not happen in Atlantic City. I was in Viva Las Vegas, the town where Wayne Newton still, to some extent, rules. Dankeschön, oh, Dankeschön. Right, that Wayne Newton, actor, singer, the all-time Mr. Las Vegas. 14 years ago today, a long blackballed from Atlantic City card-counting blackjack player, that would be me, attempted to sit down at the Monte Carlo, Las Vegas, using his old-school card-counting skills. I had brushed up on, I had practiced. We talking about practice, in the immortal words of Allen Iverson. Yes, I practiced. I got back into the rhythm, and I had a decent playing stake, 2012. But the difference between 2012 me and 1996 and 1998 me, well, there's a couple of differences. The most pressing difference is when you're in your late 30s, for example, money means a little bit more than when you're just a crazy college kid whose dear old dad is funding your entire existence because you're just a college kid, and whatever money you make, you don't have to put into the kitty, it's your money. Whatever you buy, it's yours to keep. One of those, right? Like a game show. So when I was doing my wheeling and dealing in the casinos in mostly 1996 at age 22, if I lost, yeah, nobody likes to lose, but it was not going to impact my daily life as a single college student who was just trying to get good grades at NYU. There was not that much pressure. You get to be in your late 30s, and dare I say, you're engaged to be married. If you drop $5,000, it's a little bit different, right? Regardless of, the time value of money. That's not what I'm talking about here. So 14 years ago today, I made a comeback. I was on vacation in Atlantic City, and I decided I was going to play some blackjack, but I wasn't just going to, because I hadn't really started playing poker yet. Many of you know that I'm a recreational poker player, and I've had some success. I won a big tournament in November of 2020. I got to famously take part in a social media ad, which is absolute riot. I mean, it's funny to show people, and yeah, briefly, I was recognized to walk into a poker room. I think I know this guy. That's the guy with the global poker. Right, exactly. That's the guy with the global poker. But the irony is that I could never be as good a poker player as I was a blackjack player, proportionally speaking, because poker is, to a larger extent than blackjack, it is a game of skill. Now, in order to be a card counter, you have to have an enormous amount of skill. But blackjack skill and poker skill, two different things. And no matter how good a blackjack player you are, there are going to be stretches where you just get fucking destroyed. You get your clock cleaned. You could do everything right. You could count at the level of a supercomputer. You could count at the level of Raymond Babbitt and Rain Man when Ray and Charlie go to this Caesar's Palace and just kick the shit out of the casinos. Well, it's Raymond doing it. The movie leaves us with the impression that all you have to do is be a good card counter, and as sure as night follows day, speaking of Tom Cruise, Night and Day, as sure as night follows day, if you know what you're doing, you're going to win, and you're going to win easily. Well, it's not really how it happens in the day-to-day realities of being a card counter. So here I am in 2012. I haven't played blackjack seriously in more than 15 years, but I'm ready to go, and I'm willing to, you have these calculations you make. How much money am I willing to lose at this day or this time sitting at the table? All these things, which I did back in the 90s, but it was all different. I was feeling the pressure, and I knew that what I was doing was not really that great of an idea, because the whole idea of card counting is that you have a very narrow advantage at best. At best, you have a very narrow advantage hand to hand in a given, dealing shoe. It's all very quick. Things change fast. But your advantage is so slight, that's why you've got to be careful. And let's just say that you are on a vacation where you're going to bring a certain amount of money to gamble, just saying. You don't want to have too high of a percentage of your playing stake with you at the table or on the table, because you can just keep fucking losing. So I had a very simple plus-minus system. I was not playing the advanced count that I did as, a much younger person. Oh, and the other thing, there's the pressure of the money when the money makes more of a difference in your life. But then there's also the idea, and I hate to say it, me at age 22 was simply faster than me in his late 30s. The calculations were I was not as quick. Maybe you could say, well, it's not that you were in your late 30s, bro. That's not really very old. But it felt like I was just a step slower. It felt to me like card counting is for guys in their 20s or girls in their 20s. It doesn't just have to be a guy or a girl. Whoever could do it, I feel like the 20s are the prime area and the prime range where you're going to be at your best. So I sat down at a $10 table, $10 minimum table. Now the idea, again, it's not really in theory. The idea is that you want to go at the table with the lowest minimum possible as a blackjack player if you're counting cards, because you want to have the minimum bet out there when it's a neutral count and or the casino has the advantage. The idea behind card counting, again, if the count starts to go up, meaning there are more low cards coming out, the more low cards that come out, the more likely it is that the dealer is going to break when the dealer has to draw to a breaking hand. This is all very elementary, very A plus B equals C mathematics. This is not complicated. The complicated stuff is when you're playing the sort of system that I played in my early 20s, where I was doing somewhat complicated calculations in real time and doing them instantaneously. I was very, very good at it. So I'm now playing just basically a baby count is what I would call it. It's not as deep as the one that I was using as a younger person, which would identify favorable betting situations quicker. But the problem is, after a half hour, I was starting to see double. I see 3 of them out there, hit the one in the middle. It was like that. You start to get a headache, and that's when you start to question, am I really counting accurately? Or, maybe it's not plus 18, maybe it's really plus 12. You drive yourself nuts. So by sticking with a very low-level, wimpy count, it's easier for me to do it and not start to lose my marbles there. So I'm counting, I'm playing reasonably well, and it's about 3 hours, one shoe after another, and nothing that exciting is going on. I'm not ahead, I'm not down, I'm down $20 after about somewhere between 2 and 3 hours. It's not trending strongly in either direction, because there have been times especially when I was younger and I had a lot more money on the table at a given moment, where I would have huge swings. I'd be up 2,000 after one shoe, where you just happen to a high count and you hit a big run of cards, and or the dealer just breaks every hand. But then you drop 1,500 on the next shoe, and you have these crazy swings where if people are watching, they're saying, well, why didn't bro just stop when he was up 2,000? Well, he's not there to play for 10 minutes. He's trying to get into the long run. He's trying to play enough where his actual advantage is going to be the difference, not just getting lucky on a given shoe. Because you could have a count of minus 50 and still win a bunch of hands in a row, because there is the element of random chance. But I'll tell you something that's not random chance. If you're dealing one deck, if you're dealing blackjack with one deck, okay, and you're going to play a couple of rounds with your friends, if all 4 aces come out on the first round, you're not getting a fucking blackjack in the next round before you shuffle, right? That's not random chance. If there's 4 aces in the deck and the 4 aces come out on the first 8 cards, you ain't getting any more blackjacks on that deal until it's shuffled. That's a hill I'll go down on. There's only 4 aces in the deck. This is the kind of arguments you have with people, right? So 2 hours, 2.5 hours, whatever it was, I'm not really feeling bad. I don't have a headache. Feel like I can keep going, but I'm just spinning my wheels here. So I sit back down, bathroom break. I sit back down, and for the next hour, I played beautifully. I did not make any mistakes. My counting was accurate. There were some shoes where the count was negative to start and stayed negative, and I stayed with the $10 minimum bet, and I was only playing one hand. And then when the count would elevate and I would start playing 2 hands, I would raise the bet. 2 hands of 20, 2 hands of 30, double down, splits, whatever. But over the next hour, I don't know that I won a single fucking hand. I spent 1 hour, it was at least 5 shoes, 4 shoes, 5 shoes, whatever it was. It was 1 hour where it was nothing but losses or ties. Or if I had a blackjack, the dealer also had a blackjack. And the only reason why I didn't get beat worse is because I took insurance 4 separate times because the count was so high, and of course the dealer hit the blackjack. So in 1 hour of playing mostly $10, and there were a couple of shoes that went positive, and I had $20 and $20. I must have lost $1,700 in an hour where I don't believe I won a single hand. Everything was bad. I had, blackjack against the dealer blackjack, and then I win insurance even though we tied. It was so bad. You couldn't have scripted it worse. So I'm down $1,700, and I am apoplectic because I know that I played right. I did everything textbook, and I have gotten annihilated. And this is more than half of my, supposed to be the stake for the whole trip, and I have gotten blasted. So I do something that, don't ever do this. Don't do what I did. All right, this is my PSA, my public service announcement. The story I'm going to tell you here. Don't do this. Don't do this. But I was so mad. I said, screw this. Screw card counting. This is all bullshit. You start, like, when you lose, you think, it's all nonsense. I shouldn't have even tried. I should have just done the regular basic strategy, blah, 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 blah. I'm going nuts. So I take $1,000 and I say, okay, we're going to do something different here. I'm going to go to a different table with a $10 minimum, and I'm just going to keep playing 2 hands at the minimum. And each time I win both hands, I'm going to double my bet. I'm going to play a martingale style progression system. See, the thing is, yes, I was a card counter, but I had memorized a lot of other processes, a lot of other methodologies. I had them committed to memory, and I understood a simple progression system. In fact, I understood several of them. I had a choice of progression systems. This is all stupid. You're not supposed to do this if you're the kind of blackjack player I was. But not only did I decide, fuck this, I'm going to go to a progression system. I'm going to go to a table with an automatic card shuffler. I want the card shuffled before every deal. Fuck that. Let's fucking go. Let's go. And I'm cursing. I'm getting myself all worked up. So I go to a table with an automatic card shuffler, and I could absolutely imagine the great blackjack players of the past, Professor Peter Griffin. I always thought it was funny on Family Guy that the main character's name is Peter Griffin, and there is that famous scene where he plays blackjack. Hit me, hit me, hit me, hit me. Peter Griffin was an MIT mathematician and one of the early guys who figured out ways to beat blackjack using high-level mathematics. The guy's name was Peter Griffin. So I was imagining Peter Griffin, who had passed by that point, looking down on me from, the great big mathematical genius, if there is a heaven, right, in the sky, looking down on me like, what is this guy doing? This guy read my books. What is he doing? And another one of the dearly departed, probably the greatest blackjack player who ever lived, another mathematical wizard named Ken Houston, U-S-T-O-N. Ken Houston wrote a book called The Big Player in the late 70s, and Hollywood spent, I don't even know how many years trying to turn that into a movie. The film that some of you saw called 21 with Kevin Spacey and Lawrence Fishburne, among others, was not Ken Houston, but it was very similar. The MIT kids who blasted Vegas, I guess it was in the 90s. Mickey Rosa was the name of the instructor. That's the Kevin Spacey character in the movie. But that was not the same story. But they used similar concepts of what was known as team play. Ken Houston was a guy who put together teams of blackjack players and had certain people betting small, counting, and then there were guys that were known as big players who were throwing down maximum bets when they had the advantage, anywhere from 3 to 8%. You start making $5,000 bets. And that is how Ken Houston broke Vegas and how he became a target for casino types and the mob pretty much for the rest of his life, which unfortunately Kenny Houston died pretty young. And when he passed, all of the heat surrounding The Big Player, the movie project, it didn't happen. And it wasn't until the movie about the MIT kids, which was, I think, about 2008 that it came out, the film called 21. But that's what we're talking about. Those guys, if you believe in such things, that there's a great big pool of blackjack players looking down, which I really don't, but they would have been horrified at what I was doing. This is a guy who knows, this is a guy who took our stuff, our material, turned himself into a great player, and he's sitting in an automatic card shuffler. So he lost. What is he doing? Well, sorry to say, I sat in front of that automatic card shuffler, and over the next hour, not only did I make back every cent I lost, I made an additional $1,500. Doing nothing more than playing basic strategy with a ridiculous progression betting scheme where all of a sudden I couldn't miss. I could not miss. I'm hitting one blackjack after another as I'm jacking up the bet, and the dealer just keeps breaking. Every time I got a stiff, the deal, 12 against the dealer, 6, the dealer breaks. It was the opposite, the 180 of how horrendous I ran. All of a sudden, the dealers just couldn't stop breaking, and I'm drawing 8s off 13s. It was magical. At the end of that day, I decided I'm never playing this stupid game again, at least not for money. People want me to deal, go to parties, I know how to deal. You want me to teach you how to count cards, no problem. But I hate this game. I don't find the game of blackjack to be the slightest bit enjoyable, entertaining. It's mostly dull. And it is a game essentially where the player is under attack virtually every hand. It's some form of you're under the gun, like in poker, but that's different. But you are kind of under attack from the dealer, and what are you going to do? It is a game of defense, and that's one of the reasons why I just don't enjoy playing it, because mostly your moves are about losing less. Which move, when I have a 12 and the dealer is showing a 2, the odds are I'm losing this hand. But if I take a card, do I lose less often than if I stand? Yes, there's a little pro tip, yes. How about if the dealer has a 3 up and I have a 12? Yeah. Even though it feels like you're always going to break, you lose less. Dealer has a 4 up, close call. You're supposed to stand, but I'm not going to get angry. Some people jump down your throat if you hit with a 12 against a 4. 12 against a 5 or 6, you don't touch. But if you want to hit a 13 against a 2 and some guy next to you curses you out, curse him out, because that's a closer call than you would think. Anyway, you understand what I'm saying. After this idiotic day of losing crazy amounts of money, relatively speaking, doing everything exactly right, something that I had experienced as a younger person, but it didn't hit me the same way now that the stakes were higher, figuratively speaking. And then go into a progression and an automatic shuffler, not ever playing this game again. And I have not played blackjack with any level of seriousness since, nor will I. And one of the things that I like about poker to me is endlessly fascinating, whereas blackjack is just dull. But the only times in blackjack where you are not on defense is if you just have a standing hand. The dealer deals you an ace and a 9. There's nothing for you to do. If you have ace-7 against a dealer where they don't have a big card, it feels like you're on offense, where you're doubling down from a position of strength instead of weakness. But mostly the game is about, what do I do to lose less? What do I do here so that I lose less, proportionally speaking? I just hate it. I hate the game. And it was 14 years ago today that I swore it off for good. February 19th, 2012 at the Vegas Monte Carlo, an absurd marathon 4 to 5 hour session where I did everything right and got my clock cleaned, and then did everything wrong and won it all back, plus about 40% on top. So, you people who wonder, well, why don't you play anymore? This story is why I don't play anymore. It's not really about, me getting bounced from Atlantic City back in the day, because they don't care anymore. You're a solo counter betting at small stakes. They don't give a shit. They're not even going to be watching you that close if you would be playing the kind of low stakes that I would be playing. But I just have no interest to ever play the game again. It's, that day just put me off it. It put me off it permanently. So, yeah, a happy 14th anniversary to the end of my blackjack career. And I hope you've enjoyed my little reverie, if you want to call it that, but a little bit of history of how and why I got into blackjack in the first place was just because I'm from a family of very mathematically oriented. My father was a CPA. My whole life was mathematics growing up. And that's kind of how I got into it. But you don't want to do something, if you're going to do something like that, you got to really like what you're doing. And if you don't, then don't do it. If you don't enjoy the game, don't play, because you don't want to go out there and lose thousands of dollars. I know people that have just consistently gotten smashed, and people who, not necessarily card counters, but playing correctly. It is a bruising, brutal game, and pass. Do not recommend, or as my mom would say, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. So I hope you've enjoyed my little recap of my brief blackjack comeback, which could have crashed and burned and left me in a very bad spot, but I just crashed, but I didn't exactly burn, and I resurrected myself, and all came out in the wash, as they say, and now it's just hopefully an entertaining story. So on this Thursday night of February 19th, I hope you have a great rest of your evening, and I'll see you all again real soon. Peace.